Baltimoreans headed to the polls last week for early voting. In Maryland, a crowded gubernatorial Democratic primary seeks to find a nominee who can unseat the current Republican Larry Hogan. That primary takes place on June 26th, with the general election happening in November. We visited the polls during early voting to see what issues drove voters to make their decision in not just the governor's race, but state senate and a heated state's attorney's race as well.
As citizens, it's our civic duty to vote, or else our voice would not be heard and our needs. It's our civic duty for our children, and it's just the right thing to do.
Voters seem to be primarily concerned about a few things: education, crime, and health care. What issues made you make your decision you're going to make today?
One, healthcare reform. That's not primarily one, but I work for the health department and I have a lot of issues with the opioid epidemics going on. Also, I follow national politics, so I know they're trying to get some of the money back from the CDC, and I work with HIV prevention, so that's another thing. Okay. Cost of violence reform in the city, but I do know that goes back to mental health behavior. Right. Right. Criminal reform to the criminal justice system. I do believe once you're in the system, that's a dead end for you. Right. So, and education.
Education.
Yes.
Me, from a social worker perspective, I have a lot of issues, especially when it comes to dealing with issues for the less privileged. And I think that is the most key thing. And what I usually do before voting, I go to the platform of every individual that is in a race. And not only looking at the platform or reading about them, but what have they done for their constituents in the past, or the new ones that are just coming in the race. I also have to look at what they did in the past. If that aligns with the values that it do stand for, then I can go ahead and vote for them. But if they do not stand by the values, practice what you preach. That's what I believe in.
Education for one, for teachers, need a raise and whatnot,
Why is that important?
And I'm saying they got, to me, first they let me start with the casinos, supposed to help the teachers. Put a couple casinos and all that stuff, for enough money, take care of the streets. Teacher wouldn't get laid off. It's not happening though. We're doing all the money.
Right. Given recent exposure of police corruption in the case of the Gun Trace Task Force and other incidents since the 2015 death of Freddie Gray in police custody, voters have also become even more skeptical of law enforcement. But it's not just from what they see in the news. Some experience it firsthand, simply fulfilling their civic duties, like this mom who brought her sons to the polls with her.
I served on a jury a year and a half ago, and I was appalled at the performance of Baltimore City Police. They did not do the proper investigation. They just basically found somebody who was black and was a young man and stopped the investigation. And I couldn't convict on that. And fortunately, the rest of the jury, enough people felt the same way that the person wasn't convicted, but it was just an appalling miscarriage of justice in action.
This year, Maryland saw a significant increase in turnout during early voting. Early voting has only existed in the state since 2010, and every year the turnout has increased. But even with a 57% increase this year, the numbers still only reflect about 6% of the eligible voting population. Most voters had very simple approaches, and even some words for candidates running for office. Candidates that you voted for, that made you decide?
Well, we sat down and analyzed a lot from interviews to see exactly who we thought would be the better candidate. And some of the decisions were very tough. I think we're very fortunate this time to have a lot of very good people running. So it's hard to make a decision.
If you say X, Y, and Z, and you cannot deliver for your people, you cannot do what your people ask you to do, then you don't need to run for office.
For the Real News Network, in Baltimore, I'm Easy Jackson.